Hi there. If you're listening to this message is specifically for you.
Thank you for listening to the CoBB. I'm Sharan and I co host this with Sudeep.
We've been at it for some time, and we really want to thank you from the bottom of our heart for listening to us and making us reach thus far.
And we'd love to know a lot more about you and what you would like to hear from us.
And hence, please take just 2 minutes of your time and fill this form. The links are in the comments or in the show notes. It will help us recognize who you are and also get your expectations so that we can craft the podcast content to satisfy those expectations.
Welcome to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvan Raghavan.
Sudeep, what exactly is this title? Because I've heard of influencer marketing. What do you mean when you say marketing to influencers? It sounds a little off.
Okay. It does, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I keep hearing this term called influencer marketing, which is largely about using some of the new age social media influencers
Right.
to carry the brand message in some form or manner to your
Hmm.
TG.
Right.
And so, therefore, there is a lot of talk around influencer marketing from that point of view. I was at a PWC forum recently where they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to talk about influencer marketing, and however they used it the right way. There have been multiple companies, multiple
Right.
sectors where while your product is used by the consumer or
Hmm.
consumed by the consumer, they are the final beneficiaries, but there are influencers who really influence that choice.
Hmm.
So
The
if you
purchase decision, you mean?
yeah, purchase decision, and if you permit, they are the OG of influencers.
I
So
get it. Okay.
and therefore there's a lot to learn from some
Hmm.
of those categories and some of those companies, and which led me to believe that every category has an influencer. Now it depends on us whether we recognize or not, and hence
Hmm.
I wanted to talk about this topic, which is marketing to influencers.
So when you say marketing to influencers, I'll give you an off example. Maybe
Hmm.
I just want to clarify if that's what you're talking about.
Hmm.
So I worked on an agro product recently, an agro tool product, and the influencers we had to reach out to were different kinds of farmers. So there is a organic farmer in Maharashtra,
Hmm.
and there was another farmer in Punjab who is great at setting up infrastructure around his farmlands. And they have considerable YouTube following, not necessarily on Instagram, but they have significant YouTube following. And we recruited them as influencers for a product. So are they the kind of influencers you're talking about?
They will be. They will
Okay.
also be, but that again I will say is an equivalent of social media influencers, albeit for a
Right.
different PG.
Right.
Uh, Let me give you an example.
Hmm.
Uh, when we look at a brand like Fevicol,
Hmm.
the furniture Fevicol, yeah.
Right.
So we know that the consumers want their furniture to be built with Fevicol glue,
Right.
but we also know that the consumer is not going to use it.
Right. They may not even purchase it. Right.
Correct. So the person who is purchasing it, who is influencing, etc., etc., one of the guys is going to be the carpenter.
Absolutely. Right.
So therefore, carpenter is the influencer in this example.
Got it. Got it. Okay. We're talking about the entire value chain of what's being delivered to the consumer and therefore the
Correct.
influences thereof.
Correct.
Perfect.
In 2007, Cadbury launched Bobalu,
Right.
a
Bubblegum.
bubble gum.
Hmm.
Yeah. And one of the key value propositions was that it had a lot of liquid inside.
Hmm.
Anything else had very very little liquid. The method to show that value proposition was that we had employed all our salesmen with
Hmm.
sufficient tools and training etc to go to every shopkeeper and
Right.
show this by pressing the gum and letting the liquid ooze out,
Right.
and then doing the same with possibly say a centerfresh,
Right.
right? And the difference was amply clear,
Right.
right? Now, why were we trying to do this?
To
We
get
could have
them to influence the shopper, saying this has
correct.
got more liquid in
Yeah.
it.
So this was a recognition of the fact that there is an influencer called the dealer
Hmm.
who has the power to influence the choice of the kid when they are walking up to the shop. And
Got it.
hence, if we are able to market to him well, he is going to be able to convert the consumers for you.
Got it. And this would also apply to pharma, medical reps, and
Of
doctors.
course, it will. Yeah, yeah, doctors are the biggest influencers. Now,
Hmm.
because both of us have worked in that company, we also know that, for example, for a brand like Pedigree,
Hmm.
one of their core reasons to growth was the influencers, which is the dietitians or the nutritionists, etc. That's where
Right.
the brand grew from. And
Right.
slowly and steadily, it became an OTC or a FMCG brand. It
You're talking
started
about
off as
Pediasure.
Pediasure, yeah.
You said pedigree.
Sorry, yeah,
That
Pediasure.
also could apply here because that also is driven by influences by the vets
Correct,
who talk
correct.
about nutrition
Yeah,
and
so
health.
Pediasure, yes, you're right. So that's how Pediasure grew,
Hmm.
and then it obviously became a consumer brand, and people started picking it off the shelves on their own.
Right. Right. Okay. So I get what you're saying. You're saying these are the stakeholders in the value chain who influence the end purchase decision. Right. It spoke about retailers, spoke about doctors, spoke about carpenters. Now, here's the question. When they are partners of the value chain, aren't you better off giving them margin, and aren't you obliged, or rather isn't it the matter of way that trade is conducted, that they get a certain percentage of the sale when they are already incentivized by money? Why do you then have to market to them? Isn't marketing reserved for the consumers, for the shoppers?
So I think a couple of things about it.
Hmm.
One is that they get margin for doing their job,
Okay.
yeah, which is to play the role that they're supposed to play, and everybody and anybody will pay them margins,
Right.
some more than others, right?
Right.
But if you want your product to stand out, you would have to do something,
Right.
right? You can pay more margin for sure,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, but that's only one way of doing it, yeah.
And a very expensive way of doing it if that's all you're focusing
Yeah,
on.
maybe if that's the suppose you work in a commodity category, then
Hmm.
that's probably the only way of doing it, yeah,
Got it.
which is fine, yeah. You decide for your own category and how do you want to play it. The second part of it, Sharon, is also about the fact that uh, once you give them just the margin,
Hmm.
they will speak about your brand in a certain manner,
Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
However, if you are able to give them a convincing story,
Hmm.
they will speak about your brand in a slightly different manner.
So you're saying the stakeholders in the system, or rather in the value chain, if motivated to tell your story to the end buyer, they would do it without monetary incentives.
With or without,
Okay.
the point is that at a certain level, monetary incentives are ceteris paribus.
Hmm.
Everybody is going to give them monetary incentive, and they will earn it for the role that they play.
I agree with you, and I pushed you on this point because
Yeah.
it's something that's very relevant today. I see a lot of the FMCG startups that I work with are intimidated by going distribution, omni-channel as they call it today. So talk about distributor margin, trade margin, and the different stakeholder margin that they have to pay. And I keep telling them that if you can manage to build your brand even before you take it to the market, it's better. And even when you're taking it to the market, you need something more than just monetary incentives. And that's what the brand can deliver for you.
Yeah.
And I think very, very pertinent point.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will similarly look at possibly a lot of modern trade teams who handle modern trade.
Hmm.
If they are unable to understand the cogent story, what is the consumer story, how will they attract the right kind of consumers, etc. The only thing that they have to offer to modern trade chains is discounts.
Yes.
Yeah, then we hide behind all kind of terminologies, we call them buy, but those are primarily schemes and discounts.
Exactly. All of them are, when that's all you resort to.
Yeah,
All of them are just discounting your product.
yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I get who these influencers are and why they should be marketed to. But where do you start? What comes first? Do you build a brand and then take it to these influencers, or do the influencers come? I mean, do you place with the influencers, use them to build a brand? How does it work?
So I think let's look at it in first two parts, right?
Okay.
One is that when you're working with these influencers,
Hmm.
you can work with one of the two objectives.
Okay.
One is working with these influencers specifically to impact the effectiveness of your current campaign.
Okay.
Like I said, for example, Bubalu
Hmm.
wanted a lot of these influencers to convert kids' choice of bubblegum into Bubalu.
Global. Right.
Or when I relaunched eclairs into chocolates, we knew that confectionery depends significantly on what the retailer says.
Hmm.
And we knew that when people will look at this candy called chocolates, they might ask, where is
Hmm.
eclairs?
Hmm.
Therefore, you needed each retailer to give them the right answer.
Right.
And therefore, we distributed about a lakh of those wet sponges.
Right.
Yeah, counting sponges, saying that now the
Chimekta nahi hai.
notes as well as chocolates won't stick,
Hmm.
right? All of this was done to make sure that whatever campaign you were running at that point in time,
Hmm.
that gets that gets embedded in their
Hmm.
minds, and they're able to tell a cogent story to the consumer. So
Got
that's
it.
one way of engaging with them on a campaign basis.
Hmm.
Obviously, the prerequisite of that is that you should recognize that they are an influencer to start with.
Right.
A lot of look at them as channel partners, and
Exactly.
thereby just give them margin and think that that's the only thing that they need.
Right.
The second thing about working with them, Sharon, is that over a period of time, you should also think that campaign by campaign engagement with them also will become ceteris paribus. A
Fair
lot of
enough.
the people will start doing it. Yeah.
Hmm.
And hence, if you want to, therefore, reduce the cost of engagement, build loyalty, expect them to play a role over a period of time, that
Hmm.
is how you start investing into the form or the long term marketing,
Hmm.
loyalty building with them. We spoke about Bubalu, we spoke about chocolates. Yeah.
Right.
So you could do multiple such examples
Hmm.
where you have a campaign, you are wanting to communicate something, you use your dealers, contractors, doctors, architects, engineers, whoever in the chain to communicate that.
Thank you for listening to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBCAST.net.
For example, if you look at, let's say, Unilever, I forgot the name of that initiative, but they had those Shakti stores, I think.
Shakti. Right.
They also had HUL Shakti stores,
Okay.
dealers. They used to run this program where they will ask these dealers to possibly stock a certain number of lines, do
Hmm.
them in a particular kind of display. In return, Hindustan Unilever will give them some amount of margin, some amount of preferential allocation, and a training for their shop boys and few more other societal benefits, right?
Right.
Slightly akin to the P7 program that Cadbury used to run.
Right.
Yeah, where again we used to ask a retailer to maintain a certain kind of visibility,
Right.
certain kind of stocking, etc., which used to be audited, and in return they used to receive some kind of a preferential margin. Yeah,
Right. And these P7 were the perfect seven. There were seven elements. I don't recall what those
yeah,
seven
yeah.
were,
Perfect 7.
but the 7 points that
Yeah,
had to be done in that store for that store to get extra margin and be part of the Cadbury, almost part of the ecosystem.
Correct.
and they contributed a heavy amount to the
They used to,
Cadbury business.
but more
Hmm.
importantly, when I talk about Hindustan Unilever, and I know there is a PNG equivalent of it as well,
Hmm.
uh, I know that the Hindustan Unilever and PNG models were much more than just margin, giving extra margin.
Right.
They used to engage with them slightly differentially, right?
Hmm.
So that is something I and those programs, that kind of loyalty, etc., is built over a period of time. Now,
Hmm.
since these retailers are Shakti stores for HUL over a longish period of time, you would find them being more loyal than others. You
Right.
would find them slightly less vulnerable to get distracted by margins offered by unbranded or smaller players in short
Right.
period of time. And there are countless examples in categories where there is a intermediary that is involved, for example a contractor, painting contractor, or a koti contractor, and
Hmm.
etc etc.
Hmm.
For example, cement.
Hmm.
Now, consumers, to a consumer, they will not understand the difference between an Ultratech cement or a Ambuja cement, etc.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
I dare say neither would an engineer. But finally, at the end of the day, there is some kind of a branding that the companies have
Hmm.
done, and then
Right.
via a lot of initiatives, they have built long-term loyalty with
Hmm.
engineers as well as loyalty and preference with contractors.
Right.
Now, for logical or illogical reason, there is an insistence that they've created with the help of these influencers.
Hmm.
Now, that is something which stands by them, which takes them through the rough weather, and
Right.
it makes sure that the loyalties and the preferences are not swayed by minor activity by competition,
Got it.
right? So therefore, I would like everybody to possibly think about influencer marketing or marketing to influencers in these two terms.
Hmm.
You could do something for a campaign to increase the effectiveness of a campaign,
Right.
or you could choose to invest for the long run and
Hmm.
thereby create this a sustained program which ensures long term loyalty.
Got it.
Yeah. So these are the two ways in which you can engage with them,
Right.
right? uh, Again, I keep repeating this: the prerequisite is to recognize that somebody is an influencer for your brand or your category. Too
Got
often
it.
we are blind to that.
Right. So I get what you, just to summarize what you said so far, is that your influencers are not just the social media influencers. The original influencers, or in your language, the OG of influencers, are your trade partners who are part of the value chain through which your brand or product reaches the end shopper, purchaser, consumer. Now, yes, there are trade margins and incentives that are given to them, but those are table stakes. Without that, they will not do their job. That's what you're giving them to pass your product from one hand to the other. But for them to be motivated to be a partner in your success, there are two ways to engage with them. One is make them buy into the campaign you're running, make them instrumental to execution of the campaign, and get them to drive your campaigns, like the Bubalu example. And the other is the long term execution, where you make them a part of a program and you engage with them, and you engage with them over a longer period of time, so that they build loyalty towards the business and the brand, and they almost become the pseudo salesman for the brand at the end touch points. That sums it up.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
also wanted to pick up one more thread on this, Sharon.
Hmm.
uh, and since influencer marketing is something which is something of a buzzword these days,
Hmm.
there's another buzzword that gets picked up in in a lot of circles where influencer marketing gets spoken about, uh, which is this whole trend around hyper personalization.
Right.
Yeah, Cadbury Celebrations, in one of their ads,
Hmm.
hyper personalized, the advertisement for every retailer, dealer, etc.,
Right. Right.
thereby creating one of the better influencer marketing to influencers campaign
Hmm.
that anybody has done at this kind of a scale.
Right.
And that has led to surfeit of AI tools as well as such initiatives,
Right.
where it has become almost necessary for you to mouth the name of your influencer and
Ah,
send them a personal message.
right. This is the Shah Rukh Khan one you're talking about,
Shah Rukh
right?
Khan
That
one,
one.
correct?
They won a Khan Award also recently.
Yes,
A
yes.
phenomenal campaign. Yeah.
Phenomenal campaign, and in fact, that was not their first attempt, by the
Yeah.
way. They had started doing this with some Rakhi campaign that they had earlier done, which did not
I
work
think
much.
Anil spoke about it in the
Yes,
episode that we interviewed him. I think people who are listening to this should go back and watch the Anil episode
correct.
because he goes into detail about these campaigns. Just
Yes,
phenomenal work.
yes.
Yeah, that's
So
about personalization.
yeah, so there is a lot of, people think that the pinnacle of marketing is a hyper personalization, that you're able to speak to that person. Yeah,
On a one-on-one basis.
on a one-on-one basis. Unfortunately, it is very poorly understood.
Hmm.
Yeah, taking somebody's name is not hyper personalization. If that was hyper personalizations, then most of the junk emails that you get in your mailbox are the heights of hyper personalization. Yeah,
Right.
by now Myntra and Flipkart are so hyper personalized that I have crores of rupees lying in terms of offers that they've already given to me. Yeah, and that's where I think we have to start becoming better at this. Is,
Hmm.
hyper personalization comes way later into the journey.
Hmm.
My advice to young marketeers is hyper empathization.
Okay.
Yeah, so that the fact is that you have to be able to deeply empathize with your influencer, like you do for your consumers,
Right.
to be able to understand their pain points, to be able to understand their motivators, to be able to understand their beliefs, uh, of, with regards to their life, as well as
Mhm.
with regards to the category.
Wow. I
Yeah,
think this is something very new. Okay.
now once you do that, then you start putting into place various initiatives which speaks to influencer as a person, not
Hmm.
as a trade partner.
Right.
And that's how you start becoming dearer to them
Hmm.
and start creating a an image in their mind and become somebody that they are usually attached to.
Right. I get that. It's almost creates an emotional hook as if you're talking personalized to them because you understand your target profile of the channel partner so well. And you're
Correct.
able to talk to them as if you're already seeing their life.
Correct.
So are there any examples of this that you can talk about?
So I give this example at various forums. Some parts of it are, I've changed the names, etc., etc.,
Fair.
dramatized to create the right kind of impact. Bear with me there. So in 2016,
Hmm.
I walked up to the Fevicol floor,
Okay.
and as I entered the floor, I saw most of the people clustered outside a cabin.
Okay.
Now, my first thought was that something has happened in the cabin, and everybody has gone there, and I
Hmm.
can't see loud. I can't see people clapping or making noise, etc. So something serious has happened.
Hmm.
So I kind of ran towards the cabin,
Hmm.
and my worst fears got confirmed when I saw a human form
Hmm.
lying on the floor, prone,
Oh.
and I could only see that human form waist down.
Okay.
The rest of the part was inside the cabin.
Okay.
So it immediately occurred to me that somebody seems to have fallen down, and there are a lot of bystanders. But what confused me thoroughly, as I looked around, everybody was smiling. So then I kind of had a quizzical look on my face. I asked everybody what is happening, and I got to know that this guy was a contractor, carpentry contractor from Bhairaj
Okay.
in UP.
Hmm.
Now, about a month back, his brother in law and his sister had come to Mumbai for some work.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they met with an accident.
Oh.
His brother in law, yeah, on the road,
Okay.
and he needed some 6 to 7 liters of blood
Hmm.
of a particular blood group, and his sister was asked to arrange that blood.
Right.
Now, as with this, as it is with the government systems in India. Most people are not aware of them. A
Hmm.
lot of the people are afraid that how will I
Right.
do this, etc. So she was not really clear.
Hmm.
So not knowing what to do, she called up her brother in Bahraich. Again, brother doesn't know anybody in Mumbai. He called up
Right.
the local Fevicol Champions Club.
Wow.
That this is a problem that I have. What should I do? They called up a local Fevicol Champions Club in Kandivali, and within an hour, 7 liters of blood of that particular blood group was arranged.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now this
Wow.
guy had traveled all the way from Bahraich to Mumbai in a train to pay his respects to the Fevicol team, to say that you guys, because of what you have created, my brother-in-law's life got saved, and my sister did not become a widow. She still has her husband
Husband.
alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now that is something a campaign can't get.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah. Now if you look at it, what is the role that Fevicol played? Nothing. It had nothing to do with the product.
Hmm.
It has just created a platform where people are able to connect with each other at a human level, and just be a helping hand to each other. That's it.
That's
That's all there is, right?
absolutely, that's such a powerful story, Sudeep. And thank you so much for sharing it. That a person, I am not even surprised by what Pidilite as a company or the team reacted to it. I am fascinated that a, the retailer had the thought to reach out to Pidilite when he was
No,
in this kind of a situation.
this is a carpenter, huh? It's not a retailer.
Wow. Even bigger wow that the carpenter had the gumption or even the thought to reach out to Pidilite itself. The
So
brand's already
now,
one there.
now let me correct you there. He didn't reach out to Pidilite.
Huh.
He reached out to his fellow carpenters who are part of the Fevicol Champions Club. Fevicol and Pidilite has nothing to do with it. They're part of the club. They're friends.
Right.
He reached out to them. They reached out to the Mumbai chapter, and they got it done.
Brilliant.
There's no Fevicol team involved here. There's no Pidilite team involved here.
Oh,
It
so
is
the
between carpenters. They're talking to each other
and and why does he thank Fevicol for it?
because Fevicol created that club
Wow.
and gave them that platform.
That network, that community is created by Pidilite and
Correct.
Fevicol. Brilliant. So
Now, yeah. So therefore, and I'm sure there are many more stories of such kind with lots of companies like Asian Paints and Ultratech Cement and etc. etc. I just narrated this story to possibly help our listeners feel the power of human connection,
right.
the power of having cracking a human insight.
Hmm.
Yeah. A lot of the, for example, uh, blue collared people that work all around us
Hmm.
are people who don't think of themselves as very privileged.
Hmm.
Yeah. So therefore they always believe in the strength of numbers, but they
Right.
think of themselves as insignificant in the
Hmm.
entire scheme of things.
Right.
And hence you will find a lot of them being a part of like businessmen, etc., being a part of Rotary Club,
Hmm. Hmm.
or Lions Club, etc., because that gives them a sense of purpose. They come together, do things which are bigger, and
Right.
therefore it kind of makes them feel good.
I
Yeah.
think this point is even more important than the story, Sudeep. I'll tell you why. Because the fact that he had an emergency is
Yeah.
not something the brand can plan for.
Correct.
I think the story is a result of the work that Pidilite had done so far.
Yeah.
That in understanding the insight of the carpenter, your influencer's life insight, that he sees himself or herself as a blue collared worker who doesn't necessarily have too much significance in society by themselves, but as a collective, as a community of carpenters under the Pidilite umbrella, they have significant importance. And the fact that it was so well networked already, it only came to be used in this emergency. It wasn't a brand being built in this emergency story. It is the work that happened far before this, which has ended up here.
Correct. Correct. So therefore, and the reason I narrated this story is that there are hundreds and thousands of such insights just waiting to be mined and recognized.
Right.
And so therefore, if you hyper empathize with your influencer, you will be able to hyper personalize. Yeah, and I keep saying this again and again that, don't be too enamored by hyper personalization. What
Hmm.
somebody like a Piyush Pandey, when he articulates a human emotion, it
Hmm.
speaks to each one of us personally. So
Right.
mass media advertising is also hyper personalized.
Hmm.
Yeah, so taking somebody's name, or stealing their digital credentials to craft a message for them, is a very poor way of hyper personalization, versus capturing a human emotion and delivering it in a manner such that
Hmm.
it seems that it is your own.
Right. So it's hyper personalization with empathy, which
Yeah,
accelerates the connection here.
correct.
I think that's brilliant. So when you started with empathy, I wasn't ready for this. I think this is what we traditionally in marketing language called insight. But
Yes,
I think empathy, if understood in its actual sense, makes far better fit to this conversation or in marketing conversation than even the word insight, because insight is, I think, is a very commercial term that we use, and
correct,
empathy is a lot more human.
correct. Now
And
it goes back to what I keep saying: telepathic empathy.
absolutely.
I've used this earlier also. Telepathic empathy for your consumers, it works for your influencers also.
Exactly.
So therefore, to marketers everywhere, whatever you do for your consumers, recognize your influencers and do it for them also.
Mm,
And if you do it in this manner, you will be able to build something which, then, creates long term loyalty, sustained engagement, connections at a deeper level, etc., with your influencers,
right.
and thereby, give you increasing returns over a period of time.
Brilliant. This is fantastic. So just to sum up the entire conversation, to say, choose your influencers wisely, and these are your channel influencers, and do not think you don't have them. You definitely have them. Every business has them, and figure out how you want to leverage them. Now, you could give them margins, but everybody gives them margins. Can you make them a part of your campaign, your brand story? And even better, can you build a relationship with them in the long term to build association and engagement with these people, with your influencers? And the nuance that you add to it is that there is a lot to be garnered in hyper personalization that's going on today, and everybody's striving for hyper personalization. But just hyper personalization is rather empty if it has no emotional pull to it, and that is where you need empathy in conjunction with the hyper personalization that you build for your influencers, your OG influencers, so they feel emotionally obligated or emotionally attached to your business and the brand that you're in the business of.
Yep. Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good
that's
summary.
I think this is a brilliant episode. Thank you so much for this, Sudeep. I'm
Thank you,
sure it'll be
Sharon.
useful for a lot of people.
Hopefully, we will influence some influencers with this now.
Thank you for listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBcast.net.